Hi, my name is Megan, and this is Everything Lit. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be filming or presenting to you a vlog. I talked about it in my book haul. I am feeling very overwhelmed by my library books. This is my own fault. I got so excited about using the physical library that I was like, let me just request all the books I'm currently interested in, and it'll take weeks for them to come in. No, some of them came in so fast. And so what I've decided, it's the last week of March. I'm going to try to read as many of my library books as possible. We'll talk about my goal of what I want to get through, but I figured this is the perfect time to do this, like reading Blitz, because the books I have are a lot of different genres, and I've been feeling I've read a lot of romance lately, and I want to branch out and read a bunch of other things. But for some reason, like my TBR, I just had a lot of romance on it, right? And then there was the Literature Readathon, and it just happens. So I also will be at my desk most of this week, fingers crossed, because the class that I was teaching just ended, and another one doesn't start for me until next week. Now, I may have to sub in on some classes and help out if other people call in or have time off. However, I'm thinking I will get my time at the desk, which means audiobooks. And I was thinking about it the other night, and I probably get a good 5 hours worth of audiobook listening done on a work day. So 5 times 5 is 30. I could listen to 30 hours worth of audio. So I have audiobooks for some of these books, as well as like the physical library book, because I was planning on just reading the physical library book, but Libby or Hoopla had the audiobook. I might actually use some of my Kobo credits to get through these as well, just because there are some that I wouldn't mind owning the audiobook of. I think I would definitely want to like sample it first and see what I think, but I wouldn't be mad about it. I rarely use my credits. I need to go get Vino. Hold please. Oh, he was crying at my door because I came up here without him. How dare. Okay, so that's the intro. I'm just going to try to read as many library books as possible this week. So it is Sunday, March 24th, and this vlog will finish on March 31st, which is a Sunday. So I've got from Sunday to Sunday to just throw these books out. So first, I have The Woman in the Library by Sulari Gentile. This is what I'm currently reading, and I started this a day or two ago. I have the audiobook of this, and I'm about 78 pages in, and I'll give you summaries when I start to update you about the books, but this is what we're starting with. I might be reading Vera Wong in the background of this video because I can't apparently dedicate myself to something entirely, but also I need to read this for the Books in Lala live show, which I don't know when it is. I have Don't Want You Like a Best Friend by Emma R. Albin. I think I've had this out for a month or two, and like the time is coming. I think I have 11 days left to read this book. This is a romance. It's female, it's historical. This will be one of 3 romances that I may read in this video. I have Feybound by Sarah El Arifi. I have heard other people say this name, and yet I cannot figure it out. But this is fantasy, and it involves fae and elves, I think, and it's called a romantic fantasy. It's a fairly new release. Now this I haven't had out as long, but because it's so new, I think this means that I only get 1 renewal, which I don't think I have a renewal on it yet. So this, I could have longer for this, but I just want to get it done. I have Grief is for People by Sloane Crossley. This is nonfiction. This is about grief and losing friends. I'm interested in this because I'm interested in books about grief right now. I think it has a 3 on the side, so there may be more renewals of this available as well, but if I could just get it done, that would be great. I have Projections by S.E. Porter. This is horror, and this has been renewed at least once. It might renew again, it might not. So I definitely need to get to this, and I might put this before these. I have The Spy and I by Tiana Smith. Another one that's new and may not renew as many times. This is a romance. I literally saw it in the bookstore and was like, wait, don't buy it. Get it from the library. And here it is. I have Kit McBride Gets a Wife, which I think I've talked about in a TBR. This is by Amy Berry. This is a romance. So I have 3 romances that I still want to get through, and I'm unsure if this is historical or not. So those are like the main ones that I want to get through. I have a couple other books that are like If I can get to them, I will. I have Drowning by TJ Newman. This is a thriller, and I feel like it would read so fast. Like, I could probably finish this in a day or two, and that's why I'm kind of like, maybe I should just bump this. But again, this renews a lot more, and I have like, I don't know, 20 days to read this, so it's not as like dire to get it done so I can return it. I have The Center by Aisha Manaza Siddiqui. This is horror. I do have the audiobook on Hoopla, so this might get bumped up in the list if I can listen to it at work. I have The Crane Husband by Kelly Barnhill. This is like a novella. I think it's like fantasy, maybe edging on horror. And I feel like, again, I could probably read this in a day. And then finally, one of the books that I probably won't get to because that's a lot and I'm insane, but that is Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone by Benjamin Stevenson. This is on its final renewal. Both of these I have had out for like 2 months. So these have to be finished in the next month. I actually still have like 30 days on each of these because they're a little older, so I can have them for longer. But this is a murder mystery. It's very meta. I've heard it's funny and I would like to get to it. This is one of the books that I almost bought for my birthday, but didn't because I have the library book. And so like, I'm really worried, what if I don't like it? If I do like it, well, then I can buy it and the sequel. This is a lot of books. I'm not going to read them all in a week. Let's just talk through this. I think that my goal is to get through these. That's 7 books, 8 days. I think like this could be possible, especially if I was thinking about getting the audiobook for this and getting the audiobook for this because the audiobook for this is only like 5 hours. So that could be a thing. Realistically, what do I think is going to happen? Realistically, I think this will probably be what happens, right? Because I'm already part of the way through this and I have this on audio. I have this on audio. If I get these 2 on audio, this will be the only thing I end up reading physically, unless I really push it, which I might. So, lots of books. Let's flippin' go. I am in the midst of The Woman in the Library by Sulari Gentile. I started it a couple days ago, and I'm just on chapter 12. I'm 78 pages in. I have the audiobook out from the library as well, just because I was getting overwhelmed by all these books, right? And so I went on Libby and Hoopla to see if the audiobooks were available for any of them. This one was, but I think I like reading it physically. I should probably actually not be reading it physically so I can save the audiobook, but it's fine. So let me tell you what this is about. This is a story about writers and writing, but basically we have 2 things happening. We have 2 stories. We have these letters from Leo to our main character, Hannah. No, is she our main character? No. Let me try and get my thoughts together. So we have letters from Leo to Hannah. Hannah is a writer and Leo is a writer, and they're talking about their writing, and he's kind of giving her hints and help on the book she's working on. And then the chapters that we are getting, the story that we are reading, is the book that Hannah is working on. So it's kind of meta. In the letters, we get to see Leo critiquing what we've just read and being like, oh, Americans wouldn't use this term because Hannah is from Australia. And Leo would be like, oh, in Boston, we would go to this or we would say this. So that's really neat. But then on top of that, the story that we're reading is about a woman who was in the library and someone screamed, and she and these 3 other people who are all sitting near each other decide to take it into their own hands to like investigate, or they get kind of embroiled in this mystery and they all become friends. And then the woman, Freddie, the main character in the story we're reading, is also a writer writing a story, a murder mystery about a bunch of people who heard a scream in a library. So it's like stories inside stories inside stories, and I'm really enjoying it. I think the characters are interesting. I want to see how it turns out, right? Because Leo is giving his theories as to who the murderer is, and then we have just a lot of meta, a lot of in-story crossover, and then like Leo is also a character in Hannah's story that she's writing, and so Leo is really complimentary about that character. So I'm gonna put spoilers on the screen. So this is gonna be like a spoiler vlog, but I will mark them with something on the screen so that if you want to just skip over those parts, you can. But I just got, okay. Leo's storyline in the letters, he is also a writer, but he's not published yet, and he is trying to get accepted by an agent. So he's talking about his rejections and being bitter, and like for the most part he's really nice in his letters, but then there was one letter after he got a rejection where he was talking about like, oh, it's so hard for a white man, I'm not a woman or a minority, so I wish I had benefited from the years where, you know, we were on top. And it's like, uh-oh, red flags are starting to show. He gave his manuscript to a woman who's like a really famous agent, and the part that I'm at, page 78, he was literally just like, oh, by the way, the agent who turned down, he calls it the opus, the agent who turned down my opus died the other day. And I'm like, oh my God, is Leo killing people? Like what is happening now? Like it just added a whole nother layer of intrigue, because we have the murder mystery in the like book plot line, and now things are happening outside the book plot line, and I literally went, what? Out loud, and then had to put the book down and update the vlog. My plan is to like read for a half an hour and then work on cleaning my room for a half an hour, and then read for a half an hour and then work on cleaning my room. I also kind of want to play Yoshi. I have not let myself buy the new Princess Peach Switch game yet, and I'm rewatching the show Timeless, which involves time travel, because I wanted some inspiration for time travel boy band. I'm really struggling to stay focused on it. So that's the update. Talk to you laters. Well, treat, it looks like wine, but it's sparkling lemonade from Bush's, my fave. It's a cranberry lime. So that's interesting. I'm just making some mac and cheese because on Sundays when I'm home, I might as well like make a fun lunch that I like. I just cleaned my room for a half an hour. I only read for a half an hour. So out of the 4 hours I was planning to do that, probably only gonna do it 2, but that's fine. All right, it is the end of day 1. I guess technically day 2 because it's Monday now. I have finished The Woman in the Library by Solari Gentile. It was really good. I really liked it. I finished the audiobook just a little while ago. Unfortunately, I was not able to listen to as much of the audiobook as I wanted to at work because we're busy as heck. But I did finish it and I loved it. There were some spots where I was listening at work just like and then I had to close my mouth before anyone asked why I looked like that. So I think my favorite part about this is the letters from Leo to Hannah. They just get slowly more unhinged and threatening, and I think that's a really brilliant like storytelling device. It was just really well done. I wasn't as invested in the plot of the mystery that was happening in the other storyline, but I liked it well enough, and the ending did become a little shocking. I didn't expect it to be who it was, but that's probably because I'll put spoilers on the screen. We have Leo, the letter writer, convinced that the murderer is this one person. And so him being convinced that that person is the murderer also kind of convinces the reader. It's really brilliant. It's a really interesting like red herring. It's a really interesting red herring to just straight up have someone be like, oh, well, this person's obviously the murderer. And it's like, says who? So I think I'm going to give this, I'm between a 4 and a 5 star. The 4 stars would be something on my end because listening to the audiobook, there were a couple like gaps in my paying attention. I definitely had to like go back a couple times and re-listen to parts, but that's on me, right? The audiobook listening, the attention span, that's on me. So I think I'm gonna give this 5 stars. Yeah, I'm gonna give it 5 stars. I really liked it. I thought the mystery was good. I thought the dual storylines was cool. And I would be very excited to read The Mystery Writer by this author because they have a new book out. 1 book down, 10 to go, which means I have started Don't Want You Like a Best Friend by Emma R. Albin. I am 44 pages in. I'm liking it. I like the dynamics that have been set up so far. My expectations for this were kind of low, not gonna lie, because I have seen other booktubers not like this very much. But we have one character, Beth, who has her mother, and it is Beth's first season, because this is what, Regency era? So they have the Bridgerton vibes. Beth is trying to find a husband, I think because her mother and her can't inherit anything her father had, so they're kind of SOL if Beth doesn't find a husband. And then we have Gwen. It is Gwen's 4th season. She has not yet found a husband. She has been raised by her father, and she's very outspoken and secure in her place, even though if her father were to pass, she would have nothing. But she has not, I don't know. So they're in 2 very different positions, but at Beth's first ball, they meet, they get along, they have fun, and then when their parents meet, there's a strange reaction. Beth's mom pulls her out of the ball and they leave kind of early, and Gwen's dad just is weird and silent and won't let her out of his sight and just kind of tries to have her be his distraction. So we don't really know what's going on there. I have heard that this is kind of a Parent Trap kind of thing, where the 2 girls kind of scheme to get their parents together, and in doing so fall in love because it's a romance. I'm very interested to see how that pans out and how this whole thing is handled, because it's queer in Regency era when women couldn't own things, when women were the things. But I am already liking it more than I expected to. I think the writing style is breezy enough, but it holds some of that Regency flavor, So if this is good, if I like this, there is another queer one coming out in August or September by this author called You're the Problem, It's You. You can see that this author is very Taylor Swift inspired, and that is Between Two Men, the next book. So if I like this, I've already got another book that I could read later. I don't really have audiobooks for any of the other books, but I do have the audiobook for Annie Bot. So I think I'm going to start listening to that. And another book came in from the library that I need to go pick up, and it was Annie Bot in physical format. So I'm going to pick it up Thursday. I'll listen to the audiobook, might finish it before then, and then I can just turn around and return Annie Bot the next week. But I should still go get it because it helps their numbers, and I ordered it. I was thinking about getting the audiobook for Feybound from Kobo with one of my credits, but I just don't know if I care enough, if I want that enough, because the whole point of getting books from the library is then not owning them. So by getting the audiobook, I'm kind of owning it anyway. Why would I do that? But I think I'm going to start Feybound tomorrow, so I'll be reading this and Feybound at the same time. Tuesday morning, I have a very small update. I read more of Don't Want You Like a Best Friend. I'm really liking it. I'm on page 90 now. I wish I had an audiobook for one of the books that I have out physically, but I think I'm going to start listening to Annie Bot at work. My goal is to read for half an hour on lunch and really just get through. I don't know if I'll be able to finish anything today, but it would be amazing if I could finish if I could finish Don't Want You Like a Best Friend. That would be fantastic. Tuesday, and I was talking the other day about like maybe using my Kobo subscription to get some of these audiobooks. I forgot about Spotify. I have Spotify Premium. I have 15 hours worth of audio that I can listen to on there. So today I started Feybound by Sarah El Arifi, and I'm not hugely loving it. I'm about 70 pages in, and basically what I've read so far, we have two main characters, urine, which I kind of don't love the audiobook version of that because it's urine, but it kind of sounds like urine, and every time they say it, I just hear urine, and I'm like, wow, your main character's name is Urine. Come on. It's not. It's urine, but accents, and I'm playing the audiobook at 1.8 speed, so anyway, Urine is a general in the army, recently promoted. A battle goes wrong in the first 20 pages, and she gets exiled, which I think we know from the flap. We've learned a little bit about the world in terms of there were three peoples: Fae, elves, and humans, and supposedly Fae and humans are extinct. Interesting there. There's this huge war that's been going on forever between the different elves, and they each represent different phases of the moon, and the world building doesn't 100% make sense to me. Why are the elves fighting each other when this was originally set up? Like, it seemed like it would be Fae versus elves, but it's actually just elves versus elves. And like, I'm not seeing the world. I don't understand it. I don't have a good picture of it. Maybe I should look at the map because I was listening to the audiobook. So we follow Urine, and she is going into exile. That's like as far as I've gotten. So then her sister Lettel tries to follow her into her exile and like save her, rescue her. Her sister is a diviner and creates or discovers prophecies, and there is a romance starting that I'm not on board with. Lettel feels really young, and this guy doesn't. And then I don't know, I just feel like I'm supposed to be squealing, and I'm supposed to be feeling things that I'm not. And I also think that the characters, I feel like that because we are in third person, the story isn't enough in their heads. I'm just not getting what they're feeling. I'm not getting the emotions. I'm not getting the motivation. The book is trying, but it's not succeeding in doing all of that. 70 pages in out of 370-ish. It looks bigger than that, right? This looks like a 500-page book. It's not. So we shall see. I'm hoping, listening to the audiobook at work, that I will probably finish on Thursday. I think I have 11 hours left in the audiobook. I might try to read some physically tonight as well and see if I prefer that method or, just get a little further. And then, update, I am 165 pages into this, and I'm really liking it. We've got two romances happening. We've got the one between Beth and Gwen, and we have the one between their parents. And I'm low-key more invested in their parents. I feel like their story is a little more interesting, and we're not getting all the details on it, and I want the details. But there was a scene that just happened, and I'll put spoilers on the screen for this, where Gwen kind of discovers her housekeeper and their maid making out in the kitchen. And first of all, the comfort these people must feel to be so open, and anyone could walk in, that's a punishable offense. You could be shut away for being caught together, and they were just making out in the kitchen. But the other part is for Gwen. She's yeah, I always knew they were together. They sleep in the same bed. I guess there was one scene where they both came to the bedroom door of the same bedroom, but that makes like that was not enough of an indicator, because back in the day they could have 2 beds in there. Like a lot of women shared rooms when they were like housekeepers and maids and all of that. So like it's not super suspicious that they share a room. I just like, I wish there had been more breadcrumbs left for that reveal. And I don't love how Gwen like immediately in the next scene kind of kisses Beth out again. Like they go into the wine cellar of this big like manor house, but again, anyone could have walked in. And I just feel like for a historical fiction, I get there's like a fine line with historical fiction between being like doom and gloom and like paranoid and worried and upset, and like those feelings don't go very well with a romance. But at the same time, the danger is very real. And I feel like as much as I don't want the danger to be real and I don't want the actual world to intrude on this romance, I can't help but think of the actual world and like Beth needs to get a man so that she and her mom have somewhere to go, right? Like she can't just abandon everything. I don't know. I'm having a hard time reconciling this cute romance where they want to run away together and like the reality that they have few marketable skills and no idea of the world. And I guess maybe they're reading younger than they are, and that's part of it as well, because Beth is 20 and Gwen is like 21 or 22. So like they are young women, they're not teenagers. And I don't know what, there was a turn, and maybe the turn was the way that they discovered their feelings and the way that it suddenly escalated into not an actual romance, but the way it escalated, just I was not prepared for. I wanted it to simmer a little more. It's not that I want them to be more conflicted, but like maybe I do want them to be more conflicted. This is like a big deal. This is a big decision. I don't know. I don't know what I want. But I just know that like it lost me a little bit when they started kissing, which is like, it's a romance. You should be even more excited when the kissing starts, but I'm just not. So I would have liked to finish this tonight, and then I realized I still have like 200 pages left. So I'm not finishing this tonight, but I think I'm doing well. It's only it's Tuesday and I've finished 1 book that I was already part way through. It's fine. So I think I'll finish this tomorrow, and I'll finish this Thursday, and then that means tomorrow evening I can start reading Grief is for People. Just game planning. Just got home from work, and boy do I have an update. So, you know how I don't DNF books? I'm DNFing Feybound by whoever it's by. I'm DNFing it. I don't care. I got like 100 pages in. I was 27% in to the audiobook, and I just don't care. I don't care about any of the characters. Let me tell you what's gonna happen. I'll put spoilers on the screen, even though I did not finish this book. I do not know that this is true. But basically, our 2 main characters just got taken as prisoners to the Fae world. And the older sister, Yirin, is going to fall in love with one of the Fae, whose brother she killed because the Obeah are attached to them, which are these like magical creatures they hunt. So they're gonna fall in love. It's gonna be real enemies to lovers. And then I don't really know what the character arcs are, but basically something is gonna happen where Yirin is gonna discover that killing the Obeah is bad and has to tell the rest of her people and wants to help the Fae. And the Fae are gonna realize that if they do this, or make a deal, that if they do this, then they'll give the crystals that help with sunlight and stuff. I'm sorry, I think Diva just tried to crawl up my leg. Ma'am, what are you doing? Anyway. So that's what I think is going to happen. It's supposed to be a 3-book series. Don't know how that's going to work. And I don't care. That's my update for Feybound. And honestly, like, if I'm hate reading something, at least that's a reason to read it. With this, basically, the characters had no emotion. There was no emoting at all. Like when they got captured, I was like, what? Are you scared? The Fae that you didn't think are real are suddenly real, and they're like here. And your response is confusion. Okay, fair. But then, like, is there anything besides confusion, fear, awe, excitement? Like, it was just like moving little paper characters around a map. Like, and I couldn't even see what the map looked like. The descriptions of the world were non-existent. When they were in a forest and it mentioned like a canopy overhead, I was like, what? We're in a forest? I forgot, because there's no, they're just walking. Like, when the Fae find them, do they speak a different language? These people that you didn't know existed, do they speak a different language? And then there was some mention that Yiren was speaking Elvish to like piss them off. And it's like, well, then what language are they speaking that you understand? And what language, like, what? What the frick is happening in this book? Absolutely not. So I'm DNFing it. I'm doing it. I'm not finishing it. And you know what? That means I got to start a different book. I started The Spy and I by Tiana Smith. I'm listening to that on audio on Spotify, and I'm really liking it. I think the main character has a little too much, like, I don't know, self-deprecation. I'm kind of over self-deprecating humor right now, and like, oh, I'm so awkward. I'm so awkward. Oh my God. I'm over it. But other than that, like, the book has been decent. It's interesting enough. I think the spy plot is about to take over, and I do like the audiobook narrator. But somehow, even though at the beginning of this video I said I was tired of romance, I am reading a ton of romances. And the one that I DNF'd was not a romance, it was the fantasy. I guess technically romantasy, but like, what? And then I went and read a bunch of 1-star reviews and was like, yes, this is exactly right. I'm glad I stopped. I'm glad I didn't keep reading. I am not continuing with that book. I really only read like 10 pages of Don't Want You Like a Best Friend. So I don't really have an update on that. It's still cute. Yeah, the big update, I DNF'd a book. This library video is changing me. But also, that's the thing, is like, I didn't put out money for this book. I lose nothing by not finishing it. Whereas I feel like if I paid for a book, I really need to give it my all in order to, you know, unhaul it. Anyway, so that's the update. Probably talk to you later. I'm gonna make my lunch. I don't know if I actually introed this book, so let's do an end of night update. I did start this. I'm 50 pages in, was listening to the audiobook at work, and this is about a girl who finds out that her twin sister is a spy, and she kind of gets caught up in this plot. So from what I've read, she's going to a restaurant to meet her sister. Her sister doesn't show up. Instead, a man with a briefcase shows up, thinks she's her sister, hands her the briefcase. Men come in looking for her, guns a-blazing, and she goes outside and finds this guy who she had an interview with earlier in the day for an article, supposedly, but he's her sister's partner. And that's not a spoiler because that's all in the back of the book. And they, you know, run off and escape the people, and now this like larger spy plot is happening. And I'm kind of excited because the romance has already, like, she's already like, he looks like a Hemsworth, he's big and broad, and she, you know, accidentally touched his butt. Like, it's giving rom-com, which I am here for, but I need the action to also be on that level. Like, I want Argyle, right? I want The Spy Who Loved Me. I want over the top. If your romance is going to be over the top, I want the action to be over the top. I want it all to be over the top. So I'm hopeful that this will be good. And then I am about 250 pages into this. And I know I was saying that I was like, oh, they're getting together too fast. I wish it had been a slower burn. But the reality of it all has finally crashed in, and I'm liking it a lot more. I really like angst. Like, I've talked about this in other vlogs, but what I really love in a romance is you make me root for the romance, and then you make it seem impossible for them to end up happy together, because that's how it seems right now, right? Because they're both women, they can't own land, they can't own houses, they can't have any money, they can't have anything of their own, they are property, right? So like, how can two women build a life together? That is the question. And I kind of like, I don't know, I can't see how the author is going to pull this off. It makes me excited to keep reading. Like literally, I stayed up half an hour later than I wanted to because I just like couldn't stop reading. I needed to see what was going to happen next and what was going to happen next, because the drama, the heartbreak, like there are literally 2 romances that I'm rooting for in here. However, there is a phrase that I'm getting annoyed by in this book. Every now and then this happens where an author just uses a phrase too much. And in this, it is describing kisses as sipping. She sipped from her lips. No, thank you. Stop. It sounds like you're drinking each other's saliva. Ew. She sipped from her lips. She sipped a kiss from her lips. She drank from her lips. Like, the drinking and sipping metaphors or descriptions are just, they're too much. They're too much. Please stop. But other than that, I'm enjoying it. I've DNF'd a book, I've started a new book, and I'm hoping to finish this tomorrow. I just feel like I have not been able to carve out the time to read, and part of that is Duolingo's fault, okay? I'm trying to get in first place in the Diamond tournament, which is the highest level, and it's like a special thing, and this one person just keeps getting so many points, and I don't know how they're doing it. I'm in 3rd place right now, and I'm like 2,000 points behind, and I just don't know how I'm gonna get first. I don't know how I'm gonna do it. And so I spent probably an hour or 2 today on Duolingo instead of reading, which is fine. That's great. I'm learning Spanish, but at the same time, I'm also trying to do this challenge where I am reading as many of the library books I have as possible. So I started out with 12 total library books that I needed to read, and I am now down to, I started with 11. Started with 11 total library books I needed to read, and now I'm down to 9. And then I'm going to finish these, and we'll be down to 7, and that'll be very exciting. What's today? It's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I've got a bit of time left. Let's go. I am a little annoyed with myself today. It is Thursday, and I definitely could have read more. I spent so much time on Instagram, like just scrolling, but there are days when you just want to let your brain shut off, you know? Like you just want to scroll and giggle and look at pictures of cats. I showered, isn't that good enough? I listened to a little bit more of The Spy and I. This is okay. I was not giving it my full attention today at work, and like at one point I just had to stop listening. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm not really listening. So we've had some reveals about our main character's sister, and like the spy plot is kind of taking off. I guess the issue that I'm having is that so far I feel like our main character Dove and Mendez, the spy, they haven't really like connected about anything. I guess the part that I was listening to just like before I stopped, he was talking about like a civilian he was protecting who, didn't make it out of the situation alive. So like I guess they're starting to connect, but a lot of it is feeling very like physical, like, oh, he's so handsome and he says this and he does this and he looks like this. And I think part of it is that I do prefer a dual point of view romance, but something like this can't really be dual point of view, because then we'd get all of his information about the spy world. But then that's another thing, is like, yeah, it's easier to write a character who is not part of the spy world and like they get brought into it, and then you get to explain the rules and the big players and whatever to that person and the reader by proxy. But like, it's just overplayed, it's dull, And she's like, I can't do that. And I'm like, yeah, because you're not a spy. I don't know. The way I talk about this, you'd think I'm not enjoying it. It's fine. Like, I'm not disliking it. I think that in a different headspace, in a different time, I could like it a little more. Right now, like, it's just okay. And then I did finish Don't Want You Like a Best Friend. I really enjoyed this, actually. I just finished it, so I haven't thought about a rating, but the plot came together the way I wanted. The characters grew and got to decide things for themselves, and I loved, I'm gonna put spoilers on the screen, I loved the way Beth's mom finally stood up for herself and her daughter. It was so good to see that even though it could have ended really poorly for them in terms of security and not having a house, it was so cathartic when it finally happened in this book, you know? And then her proposing to Lord Havenfort, Havenfort? It's probably Havenfort. Oh my gosh. I loved it. I was actually like low-key more invested in their romance than the girls, but I get why it couldn't be as slow of a burn as I wanted, because you had a bunch of other plot happening, and like, I don't know, the third act conflict was actually like half the book. But this will be getting a sequel this summer, and I am very excited to read that as well. I'm tempted to give it 5 stars, but I feel like it's more of a 4. But I really enjoyed it, and there was a point where I didn't want to put it down. So I'm going to have to think on it. I'm going to have to simmer. It might be like a 4.5 that I round up to 5. But like, am I really taking a half a star away because they got together too quick and the author wrote sips her kisses a lot? I'll let you know my final answer probably at the end of the thing. But right now I'm kind of settling on a 4.5. And then tomorrow I'll be able to start Grief is for People. And hopefully I will finish The Spy and I, but no guarantees, because my best friend and I are trying to get Olivia Rodrigo tickets for Toronto. So I'm taking a half day at work tomorrow, and if we have to drive 4 hours, we might, but we're gonna have the tickets in hand first. Like, I'm stalking Ticketmaster, and when they do an extra drop, I'm gonna be there. Because let me tell you, when I spent all of last Saturday trying to get tickets to Olivia Rodrigo in Detroit, and I was on Ticketmaster at the right time. I had a ticket in my cart just for me. My friend doesn't care that much. And then it got sold out from under me. When you get that error that says another fan got this ticket, why doesn't Ticketmaster let you hold a ticket? Give me 8 minutes to check out, my guy. Even 5. Just hold the ticket for 5 minutes. No. So I missed out on 2 drops. Like, literally had a ticket in my cart ready to check out, didn't check out fast enough. And then on StubHub, I had something, I don't know if it was a mistaken listing or they sold it really fast or what, but I was going to buy a floor ticket for $400 and it aired out. And honestly, that's probably for the best, because I don't need to be spending that much money on a ticket, but I almost did it. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. So I could get a lot of reading done. I could get almost no reading done. I did not get Olivia Rodrigo tickets, but I did get a big old zit, you know? So you win some, you lose some, am I right? In this case, I lost both. But I do have a half day from work because I was gonna try to go to that concert. So I'm gonna go hang out with my friend. And we might make a little mini road trip down to Taco John's in Toledo, smell some Bridgerton candles, you know, just have a chill day. I'm listening to The Spy and I on audio, might listen to it a bit in the car. I've got about 3 hours and 45 minutes left, which with my listening time is maybe about like 2 hours left. It's okay. Like, I'm not invested. I'm just kind of listening to it. I could easily stop now and like never pick it up again, but I'm not hating it. I think I wasn't in the mood, and I'm forcing myself through it anyway, which is not the book's fault. We'll say the action is picking up, you know, I'm 60% of the way in, and like, things are happening. I am a little further in The Spy and I, and the action is really ramping up. I am just like not invested in this romance, unfortunately. Like the plot is interesting, it's fine. We've got twin sisters, like we've got spies, we've got international intrigue, assassination attempts, plots. It's very cool, it's very spy, but the romance, like, you've got this agent who has been, like, he tells our main character, Dove, that he has been told to flirt with her to get her trust at like the 25% mark. You know, when things go down and she starts realizing stuff, he's like, yeah, I was meant to flirt with you and see what you know. In the like third act conflict, anything that they've shared, he's just discounting, or he's telling her that, yeah, it was all part of the plan. It was all part of me trying to like do things. And it's like, I don't think that's true, but like, it was so surface level anyway. Like they kissed, they made some homemade Oreos. Like, I'm just not in the mood for this book, unfortunately, but I keep reading it. In other news, I did start Grief is for People by Sloane Crosley, and I am really enjoying it. I think it's going to be really interesting and heartbreaking, or like it's going to be a really interesting meditation on grief and how we experience grief. And it already seems like a really lovely portrait of this man that was her friend for a long time. It's not making me like reflect on my own grief quite yet, but I think that the deeper into the book we get, the more I may relate to how she's feeling. But it starts with her apartment being burgled and all her jewelry being stolen. And she's talking about like the grief of those things and losing things. And then it's going to kind of segue, and especially I think it's also going to talk about like the storytelling that we do, because she's already had a story about her aunt telling a story and like a detail that was like funny at the time, but now like that is the story that is emblematic of what the story means. And so I think this is going to be a little bit about how we tell the stories of our grief and how we conceptualize it as a being. Because like, I don't know, so much of our understanding comes from telling stories, explaining things to other people. Like humans crave connection. We're a pack creature. And it's just really interesting and really smart so far. Bed. It is Saturday and I had a really fun time at my friend's playing games. We played a bunch of different games that I'd never played before. It was awesome. And in the car on the way home, I finished The Spy and I, and it was good. There was a twist at the end. There was some action. I think I'll probably give it like a 3.5 stars and round it down to a 3 on Goodreads, just because it didn't blow me away, but it was enjoyable. And I think the author's coming out with like a sequel called Mr. Nice Spy, and I'm interested in that. So it wasn't a bust. I liked it. I think that the characters, like the main character Dove, was a little too, maybe not the main character, like the tone was a little too like quirky, funny. And I don't know if the humor, like I just didn't get it, or I didn't love it, or just, I don't know. Things are starting to stick out to me that I don't love. Like characters justify their food choices or like feel guilty about food. Like, yeah, those are normal human feelings, and maybe they make the character feel more real to other people. But also, if we have this, I don't know, fantasy world where a normal girl gets involved with spies, why can't she also have a healthy relationship with food, you know? So just weird things like that. But like the writing was decent, the plot was interesting, the characters felt, I feel like the only character who maybe didn't feel as well-rounded was her sister. But on the other hand, we didn't get a lot of time with her sister, and in the book, she finds out her sister is a CIA agent. So, like, you know, you can't really build a character to be, I don't know, really in depth or get to know them when they're not on page that often. And her sister, like, she's finding out new things about her sister, as are we, the reader. We're down to 7 books left from the library to read. This will probably be the last one that I get to. It's not done yet. I've got tomorrow. I am 52 pages in to Grief is for People, and we found out that we found out how her friend died, and I, like, gasped aloud. The title, I really like where the title comes from, right? Because she's dealing with this grief for her things, because this burglary happened to her, and then a month later her friend died, and in her mind these two events become, like, intertwined and, like, related because they happened around the same time. And I can imagine how helpful writing this book was, but also the way that she has already in 50 pages written about her grief and how it manifested is so, for me, like, relatable and interesting, even though the circumstances of our grief are very different. She talks about how she wasn't mad at her person, she was mad at everyone else, and, like, angry, just kind of angry at existing, like, and I totally get that. Like, I was, and sometimes am, angry. Like, I get angry at old people. I get angry at people who wanted, especially around the time that things happened, I got angry at anyone who wanted anything from me. Like, how dare you ask anything of me in this time? Like, I had a really hard time dealing with other people because it was like, don't talk to me. Like, you have no idea. That was good to read, that, like, it's not just me, even though you may have reason to be angry at the person who died. Like, you can't express that anger to them. They're not there. And so sometimes it just, like, comes out at other people. She also talks about, like, grief is for people, not things. And as someone who also has a very, I don't want to say dependent, but I like my things. I'm very attached to my things. When I was in England in 2010, I literally had my mom ship this blanket to me because I wasn't sleeping well. I didn't want to pay for a new blanket, and, like, I'm just so attached to my things that I needed my blanket. And when I moved to England for 6 months in 2013, I don't think I packed this blanket. Maybe I did. Like, I packed my blankets in a suitcase to take with me because I didn't want to buy something there, because, like, this is my blanket. Like, and it's not like a my blankie kind of thing. Like, it's just, these are my things that I need to feel secure in a space. So this is really well written, and I don't want to say fascinating because that makes it feel like I'm just, like, watching through a window like a creep, but it is a fascinating exploration about the stories we tell, how we process grief. I'm already loving it so much. I have finished a bunch of books. I'll do, like, a final closeout tomorrow, but I finished Grief is for People. It took me a lot longer than expected for a 191 page book. The second half lost me a little bit. Like, as a memoir about grief, I think it's very personal and it's very well written, and there are moments of beauty. It lost me in the middle when the author started talking about, so I kind of get it. I'm going to put spoilers on the screen. The author started talking about the ways in which her friend was being pushed out of a space that was his at work, that it felt like as soon as she left, as soon as she quit their like shared job, he was getting like harassment complaints and just complaints in general lodged against him, and his tone and the way he spoke to people. And I totally get that she is trying to give us a full picture of him as a person, right? You can't, or you can, but it's so difficult to grieve and to write about a person who wasn't perfect, and to write about them or their story or give a picture of who they were. You can't only say the good things, because that's not true, and that would misconstrue who they are. So like, I get why that was in the middle there, but I think some of the bits at the end when she starts talking about New York during the pandemic, I did get a little tuned out. I understand how it worked in her personal story and how she was giving her feelings, and how the shutdown of New York City contributed to a feeling of the end or the apocalypse. But I don't like New York City. I struggle with New York City stories. I struggle with things set in New York City, and so it was hard for me to give more empathy and to understand that loss of a city that I don't like and I don't think is the center of the universe. And she admits that like there are New Yorkers who think the New York is the center of the universe, and that people should be, I don't know, grieving the loss of their city and the normalcy of their city. But it's like, we were all struggling with the loss of normalcy. But that's a sideline. She was not saying that. That did like lose me a little bit in terms of her arc, the narrative that she's building. For me, that final chapter didn't bring it back around, and part of that is probably on purpose, because when you're telling the story of death, it doesn't have a satisfying conclusion. Like, when you're the one left behind, there's no satisfaction to that. There's no end to the story. It is an open-ended question. The loss is just there as a wound that will be open forever. I get why she ended it the way she did, but at the same time, I don't know how I feel about this. I think it's very smart. It feels classic. That's a weird thing to say. She quotes Joan Didion a lot, talks about Lori Moore and Alice Munro, and like, there's a lot of writing about famous writers or quoting famous writers, and I feel like it gives it a more classic feeling, even though it is like a brand new book. Part of me does not want to rate this because it is such a personal story, and the other part of me is a writer who wants to talk about craft, and having written an essay, only an essay, not a whole book, but having written an essay about grief and trying to understand grief through storytelling, like, there was a lot about this that made sense to me and I really appreciated. Talk to you tomorrow with a final wrap up on everything I read this week, but I really did just zip through those library books and I'm so happy about it. It is Monday, April 1st. I have finished this vlog. I've got the library books that I finished this week. Oh, I think I have one more, actually. So as you can see right here, some of the library books did not get read, but a lot did. Really, buddy? It's fine, don't worry about it. I'm gonna take a shower after this anyway. Okay, so I read The Woman in the Library by Sulari Gentile. I gave this, I believe, 4-star. No, I think I gave it 5. I gave this 5 stars. And I really liked the narrative choices that were made. The letters, that storyline had me by the throat. Like, watching the slow escalation of this man and his threatening letters, I was less invested in the story within the story that was being written about this library, and a woman screamed, and then these 4 people kind of band together and want to like kind of solve the mystery. I was less interested in that, but it was still good. Gave it 5 stars. And then I read Don't Want You Like a Best Friend by Emma R. Albin. My expectations for this were actually really low for some reason. I think I had just seen a lot of like negative or mediocre reviews, and so I thought it wasn't going to be very good, but I actually loved this. I also gave this 5 stars. I loved that we actually got to root for 2 different romances, because we have the 2 girls trying to set up their parents, and then the 2 girls, as they become friendlier and friendlier, it's a romance. It's a queer romance. And it has that thing, that extra oomph, where in the middle, I did not see how the author was going to pull off the happy ending. And I love that. That is when a romance has got me good. I'm rooting for the romance, and I can't see how the author's going to pull it off. Now, in this, I could kind of see how it was going to happen, in that like it was set up well enough that I could conceivably understand how the happy ending would come about, but still, the angst in the middle was pretty solid. Wild Times, I DNF'd Feybound by Sarah El-Arifi. This just was not it for me. I think it was a combination of the writing style with the world building, with the lack of emotions. Like, these characters were written with 0 emotion. And so like, why do I care about anything? Our main character is like getting exiled. So like, this section, Urine is about to be what she thinks is murdered, put to death. And she says the chief is her lover, but her lover was gone once more. The look she gave Urine was all chieftain. She knew then she would never see the face of her lover again. Like, is that supposed to be emotional? I am 32 pages into this book. Give me more. Give me the pain in her heart. Give me the sadness, the overwhelming grief, the like, you know, give me something. Like, she just got half of her battalion killed with a poor choice. And instead of being like, well, the deaths of her troop weighed on her, the thought stung that she would never see her lover's face again. And that hurt her more deeply than losing her, like, give me something. Or losing her, what, she was like colonel or something, losing her title in the army, like split her heart in 2, and while the pain of the loss of her lover was nothing in comparison to the guilt she felt. Like, give me something, give me anything. But it's just like she knew she'd never see the face of her lover again. The chieftain's advisors filed back in, the general leading the charge of smug smiles. Urine had long been envied by those in the upper ranks for her relationship with Salawa. You have nothing. And then in the next paragraph, it does say it curdled her stomach with the feeling of dread. But it's literally telling us, yes, her stomach hurt because of dread. It's not giving me anything. And so I DNF'd this. Isn't that shocking? I never DNF a book, but I couldn't put myself through it. I did not care. And then I read The Spy and I by Tiana Smith. Low-key, maybe should have DNF'd this too, but the action plot in this was interesting. I liked the action plot. It was the romance that I was kind of meh on. Like, our main character was a little too, I'm so awkward, I'm so quirky, like, oh my god, I said all these stupid things, hee. Like, girl, you are better than that. I don't know. I just was not vibing with the main character. It was fine. I gave it 3.5 stars. Rounded it down to a 3 on Goodreads. And then last night I finished Grief is for People by Sloane Crosby. I keep saying Crosby, by Sloane Crosley. I think I ended up giving this 4 stars because it was well done. There was a lot to identify with if you have experienced grief. And there was a lot of interesting, like, personal stuff. The conflation of her grief over her jewelry with the death of her friend, and the way her, like, that grief brain really you know, kicked in. It was really good, but there was a part in the end where it really lost me, where it was talking about the pandemic, New York City, and like the loss of New York City and how that related to her friend. And it just, that part did not work for me. And part of it is definitely like, I don't like New York City. I have a lot of issues about New York City, especially writers in New York City and like the art of New York City. Like, New York City is not the center of the universe. Important things do happen other places. This person is based in New York City. The city is something for them. And she talked about how her relationship to the city was different from her friends, and like how that all tied into their friendship and what that meant. And like, I understood it, but it didn't hit me. So it kind of took me out of the emotions of the book. So I gave it 4 stars. I think it's a fantastic creative nonfiction memoir piece, especially about grief. So overall, I read 4 books and I DNF'd 1, and that was my week. That's a pretty good week. I didn't realize how much I had actually read, because this is not a normal week for me. Y'all have seen vlogs where I read like 1 book in a week. So this is impressive. I need to return them all tomorrow, because otherwise I'm gonna get charged a fine. They are literally due so fast. I got more books. I went and picked up Annie Bot today. I do have the audiobook for this, but I like reserved it because sometimes you get one or the other faster. They came in at the same time. So I'll take it. And I picked up The Emperor and the Endless Palace. I'm very excited about this. On the back, it says sexiest and most compelling read of a brand new genre, historical erotica. Okay. So if you've stuck with me this long through the whole video, thank you for watching. Leave a little book stack emoji down in the comments if you want, because you could like this video, you could subscribe to me, or really, you can do whatever you want, and I'll see you next time.